Okay, so yes, as I said, if you have any additional questions, feel free to write in the chat, and then after the presentation, I will be more than willing to answer to all of them. Maybe you will notice that I speak a little bit too fast. It's a habit that I'm trying to tone it down. So during the presentation, I will try to be as slow as possible. So yeah. I will just share the screen and we can start with the presentation. Once again, I would really like to thank you for joining this webinar on youth work and sustainability, especially in this number, which really showed the interest in the topic. In the next 20 to 25 minutes, we will explore what sustainability means in the context of youth work, why this topic matters today, and how youth workers, youth organizations, and organizations that are working with young people, as well as the young people themselves, can play a role in building more sustainable communities and practices. This webinar is designed as an opportunity to reflect on sustainability, not only as an environmental concept, but also as a social and organizational one. Very often, when we hear the word sustainability, we immediately think about climate change, things like recycling, energy saving, or reducing waste. And while all of these things are definitely important, sustainability is much broader than that. In youth work, sustainability is also about inclusion, well-being, participation, responsibility, as well as long-term thinking. It is about the way we plan activities, the way we use resources, the way we involve young people, and as well as how we create the impact that will last beyond one event or even one project or one funding cycle. What we will explore today. So today, I would actually like us to look at sustainability as something that is, let's say, deeply connected to the values of the youth work itself. While youth work is already a field that encourages things like participation, solidarity, critical thinking, active citizenship, and community engagement, these values are strongly linked with sustainability. In that sense, sustainability should not be seen as something extra that youth work needs to add. It should be understood as something that is already present in the purpose of youth work, and it can be made more visible, more intentional, and more practical. In this webinar, we will look at several questions, the ones that you can actually see on the screen. It's what can we do? What do we mean by sustainability? Why is it important for youth work? What role can youth work play in promoting sustainable thinking and action? What does sustainability look like in daily youth work practice? What are the challenges that we meet? And how can organizations and youth workers begin even with limited resources? But first of all, the starting question would be, what is sustainability? Sustainability is a term that is very broad, but a simple and commonly used definition is that sustainability means meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This definition is useful because it introduces the idea of responsibility across time. It reminds us that our actions today have consequences tomorrow. Then I think sustainability can be divided, let's say, in three dimensions. In practice, it's usually understood through these interconnected dimensions, such as environmental sustainability, social sustainability, as well as organizational sustainability. First thing when we think about sustainability, usually the first thing that pops into our mind is environment. The basic first thing is environmental sustainability. This is the dimension where people most often think about. It includes issues such as climate change or pollution, waste reduction, biodiversity, sustainable transport, energy use, as well as responsible consumption. In a youth work setting, environmental sustainability can be reflected in small and large choices. The materials we use, the way we organize events, for example, or the food that we provide during our events the travel options that we encourage, as well as the everyday habits that we model. Then we have social sustainability. What does this mean? Social sustainability, this dimension especially is important in youth work. Social sustainability is more about people, relationships, fairness, inclusion, providing equal opportunities, participation, and well-being. It is about building communities where people feel safe and respected, included, as well as empowered. In youth work, social sustainability means creating spaces where young people can express themselves, where they can participate meaningfully and feel that they belong. I think this is something that all of us can relate to within our work scope. It also means making sure that opportunities are accessible to young people with different backgrounds, needs, and experiences. Through our projects, through our work, I think most of you know that what are we trying to do is to provide opportunities for people that are coming from different backgrounds, that have certain challenges and obstacles, and provide them equal access to all of these opportunities and in general these kind of experiences. When it comes to organizational sustainability, as the third one, but not the least important, this dimension is often overlooked. However, it is very essential. Organizational sustainability is about whether an organization can function in a healthy, realistic, and long-term way. It includes strategic planning, capacity building, resource management, as well as staff well-being. Partnerships, ability to grow without losing focus or burning out the people involved. Often, especially small organizations who do not have, let's say, large number of staff and so on, they want to take so much, but we have to bear in mind that people can do so much. So we have to be aware that people don't burn out. A youth organization cannot promote sustainability externally if its internal practices are unstable. So if within our practices internally we are not sustainable, then how can we do something outside of it? If internal practices are unstable, exhausting, or disconnected from its values. So when we speak about sustainability in youth work, we are not talking only about being green. We are also talking about being fair, inclusive, thoughtful, and future-oriented. We are talking about consistency between values and practices. But why does it matter? This brings us to the next question. Why is sustainability important in youth work specifically? One important reason is that young people are growing up, let's say, in a world shaped by multiple crises and, let's say, many uncertainties. Things like climate change, social inequality, economic insecurity, mental health challenges, polarization, and rapid technological changes. These are all things that are affecting the realities of young people today. Many young people are aware of these challenges, and many are worried about the future. Some feel motivated to act, maybe, while others feel overwhelmed, excluded, and most often very powerless. This is where we come as youth workers, as youth organizations. Here we have a role to play. Here where there is a possibility for us to create a space where young people can learn, they can reflect, they can ask questions, they can share concerns, and explore, let's say, possible responses. Unlike formal education, youth work often offers more flexibility, more participation, and more direct connection to lived experience. It can create learning that is personal, practical, and connected to real life. What youth work makes possible? Another reason sustainability matters in youth work is that youth work is not only about activities. It is about certain values, the relationships that we create, and at the end of the day, transformation. It supports the personal and social development of young people. It will help them build competences, it will help them bring their confidence, and it will help them feel the sense of agency. Sustainability fits naturally into this because sustainable societies require exactly those qualities. Qualities like critical thinking, like empathy, like cooperation, responsibility, resilience, and most of all, participation. The next thing that I wanted to note is that youth work can also help move sustainability from an abstract idea to a lived practice. Young people may hear about climate change or social inequality in many places, but youth work can help them actually connect those issues to their own choices, to their communities and their actions. It can help them ask questions such as why does sustainability mean in my neighborhood? How do my everyday habits affect others? What kind of community do I want to be part of? What we can do together, even on a small scale. This is just one of the strengths of youth work. It connects learning with action. When it comes to role of youth work, what is a role of youth work in promoting sustainability? I would say, as you can see noted on the slide, that there's at least four important roles, such as raising awareness, developing competencies, creating opportunities for participation, as well as encouraging action and responsibility. So to start with the first, raising awareness. Youth and youth work can help young people be better in understanding sustainability related issues. This can include environmental topics such as, for example, waste or climate change, fast fashion, which is one of the, let's say, most hot topics for young people today, food systems, or even consumption patterns. But it can also include social topics such as exclusion, discrimination, inequality, access to opportunities, as well as community well-being. Awareness matters. It matters because without understanding a problem, how are we be able to respond to it? But the awareness alone is not enough. There's also developing competencies. This leads us to this second role, which is developing competencies, a very important one. Youth work help young people build the knowledge, skills, attitudes, values that they need in order to act responsibly and effectively. These competencies include critical thinking, includes teamwork, things like communication or empathy and problem solving, initiative, creativity, civic participation. Sustainability is not only about information, it is also about the ability to reflect, the ability to collaborate, and as well to make decisions. The third role is creating opportunities for participation. Sustainable change cannot happen without people being involved in shaping it. Youth work gives young people a chance to voice opinions, identify challenges, design initiative, as well as to take ownership of their actions. Participation is central because it shifts young people from being, let's say, being passive recipients of information towards being an active contributor within their community. When it comes to action and responsibility, this fourth role, let's call it like this, in this way, youth work can support young people in turning ideas into practices. What does this mean? This may happen through local actions or, I don't know, even campaigns, volunteering, peer education, creative workshops, community projects, exchanges, or even advocacy initiatives. These actions do not need to be large in order to be meaningful. They are often very small experiences of, let's say, small collective action that are building confidence and motivations for some further engagement in the future. At this point, it is important to say very clearly that youth work does not have to solve global problems by itself. It's something that it's completely impossible. This is something that we all think it's unrealistic, because it is. But youth work can offer something extremely valuable. It can equip young people with the understanding, the values, the confidence, as well as the competencies that they need in order to engage with these problems in meaningful ways. Now, let us move from, let's say, principles to practice. What does sustainability actually look like in youth work? One way to answer this is to think about three levels: sustainability in activities, sustainability in organizational practice, as well as sustainability in project design. Let us start with activities with young people. What do we mean by this? Sustainability can be integrated into activities in many different ways. It can be a direct topic, such as, I don't know, let's take an example, a workshop on climate justice, or waste reduction, responsible consumption, or sustainable lifestyles. It can also be approached through creative methods, as most of you know, which we all use in our activities, projects, and so on. It can be something like theater, storytelling, photography, drawing comics, art in general, community mapping, or debating. Young people might explore questions of identity, environment, social responsibility, or local change through these methods that are very, very participatory and engaging. When it comes to practice examples, let's say we give an example of youth group that can map environmental or social challenges in their local area. They could identify public spaces that they need improvement, or issues related to waste, or lack of inclusion, or absence of safe spaces for young people in their community. They could then discuss, in a sense, what is realistic, what matters to them most, for example, and what kind of response they could create. Another example could be, let's say, plain workshops on fast fashion and consumer habits. As I told you before, like, fast fashion and the influence of fashion industry on today's world is something that young people really do relate to, and it's something that, for example, they really want to work on. In this context, young people could explore where, for example, clothes are coming from. What is, for example, the whole process of making one T-shirt from a factory in Bangladesh until it comes to an H&M shop in Stockholm, for example. So they can see how production affects people and how it affects planet, and what alternatives exist. This can be combined with practical activities, such as clothes swaps, for example, organized in our surroundings, in our communities. It can be upcycling workshops with young people, where they can learn how to do something, for example, how to create something from something that is waste for somebody else. For them, it can give a new life to something. How to use social media for campaigning, for example, and so on. A third example could be food-related activities. Participants could, for example, discuss things such as food waste, sustainable eating habits, local food production, and how household routines influenced waste. This could be turned into a practical learning through recipe sharing, awareness campaigns, or workshops using leftover ingredients. I'm giving you this example because, for example, our organization was a partner in a similar project where we did exactly this, and I can tell you that the results are more than amazing. And also afterwards, I will be more than happy to share this with you. What matters is not only the topic itself, but also the method. Youth work should avoid simply telling young people what is the correct behavior. Instead, it should create space for dialogue, for reflection, for questioning, as well as, let's say, ownership. Sustainability education in youth work works best when it's participatory, and that's where the accent is. When it's participatory, critical, and connected to lived experience. Now, let us take a look at organizational practice. If an organization wants to promote sustainability, it also needs to think about how it functions internally. This does not mean becoming perfect overnight, because let's face it, it's impossible. It means asking honest questions about practice. For example, do we print more than we need? I think most of you probably think yes, because we do. Do we rely heavily on single-use materials? How do we manage food during events? Do we even think about waste separation? Are our activities accessible? Do our meeting practices support well-being, or do they create unnecessary pressure? Do we involve young people meaningfully or only symbolically? Are we building partnerships that last, or constantly starting from zero? These questions matter because sustainability is also about coherence. If we talk about responsibility, but our own practices are, let's say, careless, then the message becomes weaker. Some simple organizational steps can already make a difference. These are small things that we can do inside of our organizations, and they will show a huge difference in sustainability approach. These may include reducing unnecessary printing, for example, choosing reusable materials, offering water refill options instead of disposable plastic bottles, thinking more carefully about procurement, about local providers when possible, for example, planning meals more responsibly, or creating internal guidelines for greener events. But organizational sustainability is not only environmental, no matter that this is probably the first thing that always pops into our mind. It also includes the staff and volunteering well-being. In the nonprofit, like I think most of us are into, and in general in the the sector, burnout is a real issue. Teams are often small, deadlines are tight, and expectations are high. If we want organizations to be sustainable, we need to talk about realistic planning. How much can we take on our plate? Like to have fair distribution of tasks within the team, to have good internal communication, to learn, and at the end of the day, we need to care because long-term impact is difficult to create when people are constantly exhausted. For organization working with projects, especially in the field of international youth work, which I think most of us can relate to, sustainability can be integrated from the very beginning. It can shape the project topic, it can shape its learning objectives, the working methods, the logical choices, and the follow-up after the activity ends. For example, a project can include sustainability not only as a thematic discussion. It doesn't have to be the focus of the project. It doesn't have to be the topic. It can also appears and exists in a way how something is organized. I will give you a simple example. For example, participants can be encouraged to reflect on travel choices where realistic reduce waste during the activities, or take part in discussions about how event organization itself reflects the sustainability values. Reflection can be built into the program so that participants connect what they want to learn with what they experience. It is also important that sustainability is not added only because it sounds good in an application form. This is something that we often see. Sustainability is a hot topic right now. It's something that everybody wants to do. It's something that everybody will include in their project applications. But in reality, will they implement it? I'm not sure. It should be meaningfully connected to the needs of the target group and the real objectives of the project. Young people usually recognize when a topic is included only superficially. Authenticity matters. But as always, there are some real challenges to this. One common challenge is limited resources. Many youth organizations work with small budgets, temporary project finding, and limited capacity. Sustainable alternatives are not always easy or affordable. Sometimes the most ecological option is more expensive, less available, and harder to organize. Another challenge which I would like to mention is lack of time and overload. When organizations are focused on deadlines, administration, reporting, logistics, sustainability may feel like an extra task rather than an integrated approach. This is understandable, of course, but that is why it is important to start with realistic steps rather than trying to change everything all at once. The third challenge is maybe a bit funny, but it's superficiality. Sustainability can sometimes become a fashionable word that is used in communication without real challenges behind it. This is risky because it reduces trust and turns an important concept such as sustainability into a slogan. Being sustainable does not mean saying the right words. It means making constant choices, even small ones, and being honest about the process. Last, I would like to talk about changing habits. People often agree that the idea of sustainability is great, but still find it difficult to change routines. This applies to both individuals as well as the organizations. Habits around consumption, travel, materials, planning, and communications are deeply embedded. Change usually takes time, repetition, and reflection. So, what do we need? We need a realistic approach. And I believe that it is important to approach sustainability with realism and humility. The goal is not perfection, perfection is impossible. The goal is progress, consistency, and intentionality. But then, how do we begin? So, how can youth workers and organizations begin? A good first step is simply to reflect. Before creating new policies or launching new activities, it helps to ask yourself, where are we now at this point? What are we already doing well? What are the gaps? What feels realistic? And on the other hand, what matters most in our context? This reflection can be done individually, within your team, or together with young people that you work with. In fact, involving young people in this process is highly valuable because they often notice things that, let's say, adults overlook. They may also have ideas that are practical, creative, but most important, very relevant. So, the second step is to choose few priorities. It is much better to commit to 2 or 3 realistic improvements than to create a long list that, let's say, nobody has the capacity to follow. Priorities might be different for different organizations. For one organization, the first step may be making events more environmentally conscious. For another, it might be improving inclusion or accessibility. It can be strengthening internal well-being or planning. The third step is to integrate sustainability into daily practice. This means moving from one-off actions to ongoing habits. Instead of doing one activity about sustainability and moving on, organizations can just ask themselves, how can this way of thinking become part of a regular planning, communication, partnership, or evaluation? Final step, and the most important one, is to review and adapt. Sustainability is a process. Some things will work well and others will not. This is something that is completely normal. The important thing is to learn from experience, reflect honestly, and continue improving. A simple model such as plan, do, check, improve can be very helpful here. I also want to emphasize that sustainability should not be approached only as a restriction or sacrifice. Yes, it does involve responsibility and sometimes difficult choices, but it can also be a source of creativity, cooperation, and finally, innovation. It can help organizations become more thoughtful, more connected to their communities, and more aligned within their values. It can help young people to see that they're not powerless and that even small actions can have meaning when they are collective and intentional. For the end, and before we close, I would like to return just to one central idea. Sustainability in youth work is not only about protecting the environment, although this is very important. It is also about protecting relationships, opportunities, communities, and the future. It is about creating youth work that is responsible, inclusive, reflective, and at the end of the day, capable of lasting impact. Youth work is uniquely positioned to contribute to this. It brings people together. It creates spaces for learning and participation. It supports values such as solidarity, responsibility, and active citizenship. It reminds us that meaningful change often begins with dialogue, trust, and small shared actions. If sustainability becomes part of how we think, how we plan, and how we work with young people, then it can become not just a basic topic, but a practice. This concludes my presentation, and lastly, I would really like to thank you. I hope this webinar has offered some useful ideas and reflections and practical entry point of view for thinking about sustainability in youth work. I would just like to conclude that sustainability in youth work means aligning our values with our methods and our everyday choices. It means thinking long term while acting in the present. It means recognizing that we organize, include, educate, and collaborate all contribute to the kind of future that we're building. Okay, just to go back to, I hope you can all see me. Once again, thank you really much. I hope that you had some informative points to this presentation. Somebody wrote in the chat. Of course, we can share the presentation, and I think also the whole webinar will be published and will be available to you as well. Then I don't know if anybody maybe has some questions. I think I mean, more or less, we don't have time, but we do have time maybe for a question or two. I see that we have one question in the chat. Can you please elaborate a bit on sustainable practices during training or any other activities? This is something that, for example, in the past few years, we are really trying um, to let's say implement in all of our activities, no matter what the topic is. Sustainability should be, as I said in my presentation, should be present no matter what kind of topic are you dealing with. What we do, for example, we recently had a training course where we basically used one piece of paper, and that was only because there was no internet available at this point. So we are trying to go as digital as possible, for example. This is something that we are doing. Then to try to encourage not to use paper and plastic cups and so on, to use reusable bottles. Sometimes, if the budget allows, then we even give them as a gift at the beginning of the project to participants, so they do have it and they can develop this habit of having a water bottle with them and so on. So all these like small things can be implemented in no matter what types of activities are you doing. If there is no more questions, except to say thank you for listening to me. It was very nice, and I really do hope that you enjoyed it. That being said, I think we can conclude this meeting, this webinar. One more thing, with your email that you apply with, after the webinar, you will receive a small evaluation form, and we would be very grateful for your feedback on what we did well or what we didn't do well, because we have 5 more to go and we are ready to improve. So yes, that being said, thank you one more time. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you heard some good things that you can apply within your work. And that will be it. Thank you.